Did I offend anybody today? No. Very good, absolutely wonderful. Not yet, but maybe idiots. I mean, fellow Toastmasters, I will offend you soon. I mean, that's the kind of person I am. 20 years ago, when I was still young, and it's not that long ago, I was sitting in a bar with a friend of mine and his girlfriend, John and Sue. And I was sitting there with as a very responsible designated driver, a rum and coke drinking. And they were drinking too. At that time, you could still smoke in bars. Now, Sue hated it. John hated it when Sue would light up a cigarette. And somehow they had been arguing that night. And Sue decided to stick it to John. She pulled out a cigarette, lit up, and started smoking and blew it in his face. Well, John got so angry, he stood up, he stormed out, and he started walking 10 to 15 kilometers home. I just sat there drinking my rum and coke. Sue looked at me and she said, "What's John's problem?" And I said to her, "Why are you such a..." I can't say those words out loud. But just let's say, dumb idiot. Well, she started crying. "How can you say those things to me?" I said, "Because you're a dumb idiot." So anyway, I put her in my car and I took her home and I made sure she was safe. And then I went to look for my friend John. Eventually I found John. She jumped in the car, I took him home. And Sue called him, crying in tears. John, Paul said this thing to me." And John said to her, "Paul is not known for his subtlety or kind words." Yes, this speech is about what kind of communicator are you? And I am, according to Toastmasters, a direct communicator. That means I probably offend a lot of people every day. And I'm sure if you know me for 5 or 10 minutes, you'd probably know that. Because, as my father would say, I call a spade a spade. I say what I see out loud. In a modern politically correct world, if I see a girl, I call her a girl, no matter what she thinks she might be. If I see a boy, I call him a boy, no matter what he might think he is. If I see a dog, it's a dog. If I see a cat, it's a cat. I'm a direct communicator, and is there anything wrong with that? Maybe. When I think about direct communication, though, I ask myself 3 questions. Should I change? Probably not. It's who I am, so I change. Quite happy with it, actually. But I also ask 3 other questions. Is it cruel? Is it kind? Is it effective? Let's look at the first one. Is it cruel? Well, I'm a teacher, and I teach students. May is one of my students. Now, imagine if I went up to my students and they said, Teacher, how's my English?" I said, "It sucks." Number 1, that would be cruel. And number 2, I wouldn't tell any students. But if you go up to a student and you say to them, Teacher, how's my English?" And you're very direct with them and you say, "You've made great progress." You don't beat around the bush, you say, "You've made great progress. Thank you for coming to class every week. Keep on working on it." That's not so cruel, and that's very direct. It's encouraging them in the right way. But certainly, if somebody came up to you and said, "I voted for Joe Biden," and you said, "You idiot." That's cruel. Don't do that. Maybe you could say to them, "I still love you." So, is it cruel? It depends on how you say it. The second issue is it kind? Once I was on a bus, and I was standing on the bus, and a lady sat down, she stood up, and she got off. Another lady sat down, she stood up, and she got off. And then an old man got up, sat down, he looked at me, hey, and he pointed at my zip. My zip had been down for half an hour. Now, if somebody had told me that, I have no shame. But it might have been kind for those 2 ladies who were sitting in front of me. Is it kind? Think about my wife. She'll often say to me, "Hey, Paul, how do I look?" And I'll say, "Not that good. Go put on something else." Is it kind? Is it kind to let my wife go out the house not looking the best she can? Is that kind? I think it is. Once, last year, I was preparing a speech. "How can I help you?" 1 week before, actually it wasn't 1 week, it was 5 days before the semi-final, I get a phone call from Lester. Paul, come to my office. We need to talk about your speech. So, all right. After working on this speech for 2 months, practicing it, thinking it's the best speech ever, I get to Lester's office, I sit down, and Lester very directly says, Paul, I hate your beginning. You need to change it. I stood up, I walked out, I tore up my speech, and I told my wife, I quit. I went to bed, I slept, I woke up, and I wrote the best speech of my life. Was it kind? Yes, it was. So the next question is it effective? It depends which culture. I think if you're direct in Japan, you won't get anything done. But I think about what happened to my wife recently. As many of you know, my wife has got stage 2 ovarian cancer. And I remember when I went to the hospital to talk to the doctor, and the doctor was sitting there. He looked at Queenie and he said, I think you've got cancer. I said, okay, what do we do? He says, we have an operation. I said, when do you have an operation? He says, yeah, in 3 or 4 weeks. I said, excuse me, it's cancer, right? He said, yes, it's cancer. I said, cancer kills you, right? He said, yes, cancer can kill you, but 3 weeks. I said, it's growing, right? He said, yes, it's growing. I said, so you do the operation tomorrow, right? He said, no, 3 weeks. I said, tomorrow. He said, no, 3 weeks. I said, tomorrow. He said, but I don't work on Fridays. I said, well, when do you work? He said, I work on Tuesday. I said, fine, I'll be here Tuesday. What time? He said, okay, check in on Monday. Direct communication might have saved my wife because they thought it was stage 1. Turned out to be stage 2. If we had waited 3 weeks, we would have delayed the chemotherapy. So, is it cruel? Depends how you say it. Is it kind? Sometimes. And is it effective? Depends where you are, but if you're fighting for someone's life, I think it's worth it. So, should I change my communication style, you might ask? I'll say, don't be an idiot. Nobody has one communication style. In fact, the most important thing with communication, as Alfred Hitchcock said, the audience is king. The person you're speaking to is king. So try and figure out what is their communication style and follow suit. Me, most days I'm going to be a direct communicator, but on other days, maybe I'll figure out something else. Toastmaster of the day.